The missing children's incident is the emotional and narrative core of Five Nights at Freddy's, the event from which almost every other horror in the series radiates outward. While later games expand the mythology with underground facilities, family drama, and metaphysical concepts like Remnant, the missing children's incident remains the original wound that never healed. It represents the moment when the cheerful fantasy of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza collapsed into something rotten, when a place designed for joy became a factory for trauma. What makes the incident so powerful is not just that children were murdered, but that the crime was hidden, denied, and allowed to fester inside machines meant to entertain other children. The series never presents the incident in a single, clear cutscene. Instead, it is reconstructed through newspaper clippings, environmental storytelling, minigames, and implication. This fragmented presentation mirrors how society itself tried to forget what happened, burying the truth under corporate silence and cheap mascots. At its core, the missing children's incident involves William Afton luring multiple children into a back room of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza while wearing a mascot suit, most commonly associated with Spring Bonnie. The suit is crucial to understanding the horror because it weaponizes trust. The children follow not a stranger, but a character they recognize, one that represents safety, fun, and authority within the space. This act transforms the mascot from a symbol of joy into a predator's disguise, permanently corrupting the identity of Freddy Fazbear as a brand. The murders are implied to be deliberate, controlled, and methodical, rather than impulsive, suggesting that William was fully aware of what he was doing and confident he would get away with it. The fact that the bodies were hidden inside animatronic suits adds another layer of cruelty, turning the victims into part of the machinery of entertainment, forced to perform for the same type of audience they once belonged to. The aftermath of the missing children's incident is defined by denial and half measures rather than justice. The restaurant does not immediately close in response to the disappearances, and William Afton is never definitively convicted in the public record. Instead, rumors spread, foul smells are noticed, and parents grow suspicious, but the system fails to fully acknowledge the truth. This institutional failure is as important as the murders themselves. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, as a company, becomes complicit by prioritizing reputation and profit over accountability. The slow decay of the animatronics, leaking fluids and malfunctioning behavior, is a physical manifestation of this moral rot. The building itself becomes haunted not only by ghosts, but by negligence and cowardice. In this way, the missing children's incident is not just a crime, but a societal failure, one that allows the horror to persist long after the killer disappears. The possession of the animatronics is the most famous consequence of the incident, but it is not portrayed as a triumphant revenge or a clean supernatural rule. The children do not become powerful spirits with agency. They become confused, angry, and trapped. Their consciousness is bound to rigid programming and limited perception, which is why they attack night guards indiscriminately rather than seeking William directly. This detail is crucial because it reframes the animatronics not as villains, but as broken victims lashing out in the only way they can. The security office becomes a space of tragic misunderstanding, where innocent people are attacked by other innocents, all because the true culprit remains free. The horror here is existential rather than just frightening. The children are denied rest, denied clarity, and denied justice, forced to relive fragments of their last moments endlessly. The missing children's incident also reshapes the timeline of the series by creating a cycle of repetition. New locations open, new guards are hired, new animatronics are built, but the underlying curse remains. Each attempt to move forward without resolving the past only spreads the damage further. This is why the incident echoes into later events like the creation of the toy animatronics, the shutdowns of restaurants, and the increasingly aggressive behavior of the machines. The past is not haunting the present because it wants to be remembered. It is haunting the present because it was never properly addressed. Every sequel, prequel, and side story ultimately circles back to the same unresolved crime, reinforcing the idea that you cannot build something new on top of buried bodies and expect it to stay stable. On a thematic level, the missing children's incident represents the ultimate betrayal of childhood innocence. Five Nights at Freddy's consistently uses childlike imagery, bright colors, simple songs, and playful characters, then twists them into sources of fear. The incident is the point where that inversion becomes permanent. From then on, nothing associated with Freddy Fazbear's can ever be truly safe again, because the foundation is corrupted. The animatronics sing songs meant to comfort, but their voices are distorted. Birthday parties continue, but they are haunted by absence. This contrast is what gives the series its unique tone. The horror is not alien or unknowable, but familiar and domestic, rooted in places meant for families. The emotional weight of the missing children's incident is amplified by how little closure it receives. Even when William Afton is eventually trapped and seemingly destroyed, the children's suffering does not instantly end. their spirits linger, fragmented and restless, suggesting that justice delayed has become justice denied. This lack of resolution is intentional, reinforcing the idea that some damage cannot be undone, only contained. The later attempts to set things right in the series feel less like victories and more like desperate damage control. The incident is not a problem to be solved, but a tragedy to be acknowledged, and the games force the player to sit with that discomfort rather than offering easy answers. Ultimately, the missing children's incident is what transforms Five Nights at Freddy from a simple survival horror game into a story about consequence. Every jump scare, every flickering camera, and every hostile animatronic traces its origin back to that single moment of violence and deception. The incident defines the moral universe of the series. Evil actions do not disappear when they are hidden, and the cost is rarely paid by the person who caused them alone. Instead, it spreads outward, trapping victims, bystanders, and even future generations in its wake. The horror of the missing children's incident is not just that it happened, but that it was allowed to echo forever, screaming quietly from inside smiling machines. The so-called Dead Kids incident in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is best understood not as a separate tragedy that replaces the missing children's incident, but as a distorted echo of it, a second wound caused by the same refusal to confront the first. If the original missing children's incident represents the birth of the haunting, then the events surrounding the newer location in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 represent its metastasis. This is what happens when a company tries to reopen, rebrand, and modernize without ever addressing the rot at its core. The new restaurant is brighter, more open, and filled with advanced toy animatronics designed to appear safer and more child-friendly, yet the violence returns anyway. The implication is clear: technology cannot fix moral failure, and progress means nothing when the same hands are still capable of reaching into the dark. In Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the Dead Kids incident is implied through minigames, newspaper hints, and the increasingly aggressive behavior of the toy animatronics. Unlike the original missing children's incident, which involved children disappearing and being hidden inside suits, this event feels messier and more public. The minigames show bodies lying out in the open, blood visible, and animatronics reacting immediately to the aftermath. This suggests a killing spree that is faster, more reckless, and less controlled than before. William Afton, now associated with a security guard disguise rather than a mascot suit, appears to have adapted his methods but not his impulses. The murders happen inside a supposedly safer environment, one that advertises facial recognition systems and criminal databases, making the crime feel almost defiant, as if William believes himself untouchable. The Dead Kids incident thus reflects escalation, not repetition, a sign that the cycle of violence is accelerating rather than stabilizing. What makes the Dead Kids incident especially disturbing is how quickly it poisons the toy animatronics. These machines are explicitly designed to detect threats, yet they fail to stop the murders and instead turn hostile toward adults afterward. This implies that the animatronics are not malfunctioning randomly, but responding to what they have witnessed. Whether interpreted as possession, corrupted data, or emotional imprinting, the result is the same. The machines become paranoid, aggressive, and unable to distinguish between innocent guards and genuine danger. This is a crucial thematic shift. In the original missing children's incident, the animatronics are haunted because bodies were hidden inside them. In Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the animatronics may be haunted because they saw the violence happen. Trauma, in this case, does not require physical containment. Observation alone is enough to contaminate them. The Dead Kids incident also deepens the series' critique of institutional negligence. Despite clear signs that something is wrong, the restaurant continues operating for a time, relying on denial and public relations to maintain appearances. Staff are rotated, night guards are treated as disposable, and the truth is never communicated honestly. Jeremy Fitzgerald, the primary protagonist of the game, works in an environment already soaked in unseen blood, yet he is given no context and no protection. This reinforces a recurring theme in Five Nights at Freddy. The people most affected by these tragedies are never the ones responsible for them. Guards, children, and even animatronics absorb the consequences, while the system that enabled the violence attempts to quietly reset. The Dead Kids incident exposes how hollow the idea of moving on really is when nothing has been resolved. The relationship between the Dead Kids incident and the Bite of 87 is also significant, because it suggests that violence begets instability, which then spills outward in unpredictable ways. The animatronics' aggression, heightened by whatever they witnessed or absorbed during the murders, leads to escalating danger for both staff and guests. The Bite of 87 feels less like an isolated accident and more like an inevitability, the final symptom of a place pushed beyond its breaking point. In this sense, the Dead Kids incident acts as a catalyst, accelerating the collapse of the new location and proving that the curse of Freddy Fazbear's cannot be contained by new designs or stricter rules. Once violence becomes normalized, it finds new expressions. On a narrative level, the Dead Kids incident serves to reinforce William Afton's characterization as irredeemable. Unlike the earlier murders, which some fans interpret as experimental or secretive, these killings feel overt and careless. They suggest a man who is no longer hiding because he does not believe he needs to. This brazenness makes the incident feel colder and more hopeless. There is no illusion left that this could have been prevented by simple vigilance or better management. The threat is internal, systemic, and persistent. By repeating the act of killing in a new location, William ensures that the haunting of Freddy Fazbear's is no longer tied to a single building or generation. It becomes a legacy of violence that follows wherever the brand goes. Ultimately, the Dead Kids incident in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 exists to show that the missing children's incident was not a one-time horror, but the beginning of a pattern. It demonstrates what happens when trauma is buried instead of confronted. It resurfaces, louder and uglier than before. The open bodies, the malfunctioning animatronics, and the rapid shutdown of the restaurant all point to a truth the series returns to again and again. You cannot erase blood with bright colors, you cannot fix murder with technology, and you cannot escape the past by pretending it never happened. The Dead Kids incident is the moment when Freddy Fazbear's proves, beyond any doubt, that it is incapable of learning from its own history, and that failure is what condemns everyone who walks through its doors afterward.